Why does ADHD making managing emotions so hard? And why does ADHD make it so hard to finish things? Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Carruthers, a licensed psychologist. Today, I'll be answering some of the internet's biggest questions about the challenges of having ADHD as an adult. Why does ADHD make managing emotions so hard? Having ADHD makes managing emotions so hard because emotion regulation is one of the core executive functions. And if you know anything about ADHD, or if you're learning about ADHD, you'll learn that ADHD is a disorder of executive function. What happens is people may struggle because they are more likely to act before they think. And so if you experience something and you have a strong feeling about what you've experienced, you're likely to behave based on your feeling rather than based on a logical set of steps or thoughts about what's happening in your environment and how that can impact you. The other part of it is that people with ADHD tend to have fewer dopamine receptors in their brains. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain that sends signals to different regions and impacts our moods and emotions. What's important to understand about dopamine is that it's not just part of the system when it comes to ADHD. It's really important in terms of depression and anxiety. That's why people with ADHD may notice that they experience high rates of depression and anxiety. Why does ADHD make it so hard to finish things? I think this is a complicated question, but it's an easy question at the same time. ADHD makes it so hard to finish things because on the one hand, you're often hyper-focused and super engaged in doing the things that bring you pleasure or that you really enjoy. And so you get so wrapped up in doing those things that you may forget about other tasks that need to be started or completed because they are not pleasurable or interesting to you. On the other hand, when it comes time to do those tasks that are not pleasurable or naturally interesting to you, you may try really hard to get them all done at once as fast as possible and then miss out on specific steps to getting them done correctly and completely. What are adult ADHD behavior problems? For adults with ADHD, there are a number of commonalities in terms of behavioral problems they may face, but it's really important that if you are an adult with ADHD, you try to stay away from comparing yourself to other people because it could be that they present with a type of ADHD that is different than yours. That's because there are three different presentations of ADHD. The first presentation is hyperactive impulsive presentation, the second is inattention, and the third is a combination of inattention and hyperactive impulsive symptoms. If you're an adult who predominantly struggles with hyperactivity and impulsivity, you might find that you are making rash decisions or engaging in impulsive behaviors like responding to a text message or an email before you're really ready. You might also find that if you're in a situation where you feel angry, you might be more likely to blurt out a response. If you are an adult who struggles with inattention, one of the things that you might find is that you lose track of time. You know that you're supposed to be someplace at a certain time, but you overestimate the amount of time you really need and you end up being late. If you struggle with a combination of these symptoms, you might find that in relationships, it's really hard to be consistent and to follow through with requests from your partner. With your kids, you may not be able to consistently set routines or provide structure. And with your friends, you may not be showing up consistently or responding to them in a way that they expect you to. Finally, as a psychologist, I often see some common behaviors across the board. Things like messiness or disorganization or difficulty with financial responsibility. What is emotional reactivity? Emotional reactivity is your response to a mood or emotional experience that you're having, and reactivity typically refers to the intensity of that mood or emotion. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, I'm always teaching people the difference between emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Many times people will say, "I felt like," when they're really describing what they were thinking. So an emotion is anger, sadness, happiness, joy, excitement. We tend to experience those more intensely depending on a trigger, and that can lead to emotional reactivity. One of the things that I recommend to my clients is that they use some CBT approaches to be aware of the difference between their moods and emotions and their thoughts so that they can understand their behaviors, and those behaviors can often look like high emotional reactivity. Oh, and by the way, what challenges do you face the most? Let us know in the comments. What's the deal with ADHD and lying? So first of all, everybody tells lies at some point in their life or has told lies. We don't want people to make a habit out of telling lies, but it happens. With ADHD, there may be a tendency to lie more frequently if a person is struggling with impulsivity. And I think it's really important to understand what's the function of the lie. The lying behaviors may occur because people are really trying to buy themselves a little more time or to make sure that they're not consistently disappointing others. So it's not that people with ADHD are liars or that they lie more. For people with ADHD, there are a number of different situations that they find themselves in frequently due to their ADHD symptoms. So people might engage in those behaviors to buy themselves a little more time, to avoid getting in trouble, or to avoid disappointing others. What is people pleasing? Many people engage in people-pleasing behaviors because they want to make other people happy, or they're concerned that if they don't engage in these behaviors, they won't maintain relationships. It's really important to note that you can get into patterns of people-pleasing that go against your own wants and desires and then lead you to feel resentful or angry. One of the ways to avoid people-pleasing is to be really aware of why you're saying yes and whether or not that yes actually works for you. Now, to be clear, there are going to be certain situations where you have to do things that are asked of you by other people. The difference is that with people pleasing, you're doing things that others want all the time without paying attention to what works best for you and what makes you feel good. And one of the ways to know if you're engaging in people pleasing behavior is to note whether or not you're feeling depleted afterwards, or you're feeling really frustrated or irritated because you've done something that was asked of you that you really didn't want to do. If that's the case, you want to take a step back and really be thoughtful about what it is that you want to do and how you want to feel after you engage. How do I get better at keeping plans? One of the ways that you can get better at keeping plans is to actually keep the plan. As you are making plans, it's really important to avoid overcommitting or promising to do things that you really don't want to do, or engaging in people-pleasing behavior. And I think if you understand why you're making a plan or why you're committing to a plan, it can help you with your follow-through. When it comes time to actually keep the plan and engage in follow-through, don't be surprised if some feelings of anxious avoidance come up, or some worries about maybe not showing up the right way or feeling overwhelmed. So just remember, if you keep plans and you're consistent, you're more likely to keep people. Hey, you made it all the way here. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to help make a difference, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. You'll support Understood's mission of making sure that the 70 million people with learning and thinking differences like ADHD and dyslexia can thrive.